Hello and a very good morning. You're watching the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha television. I'm your host Frank Pereira. Here are the latest headlines. Shiv Sena to sit in the opposition in Maharashtra, but Uddhav Thackeray speaks of continuing discussions on power sharing with the BJP. NCP says it won't do anything to endanger stability of the Fadnavis government. Prime Minister to leave on a three-nation visit to Myanmar, Australia and Fiji today. His longest foreign tour yet. Says black money and the economy are to be key issues at G20 summit in Australia. New draft civil aviation policy proposes greater public-private partnership in the sector. Government speaks of a roadmap for privatization of Air India. And Boko Haram suspected to be behind a suicide blast attack at a school in northern Nigeria. At least 48 people, mostly school children, believed dead. Our top focus on the bulletin this morning. A dual approach of sorts from the Shiv Sena persists in Maharashtra. On the one hand, the party has staked its claim for the post of leader of the opposition, and its MLAs sat on opposition benches in the special session of the State Assembly. Yet, on the other, Sena Chief Uddhav Thackeray said late yesterday that talks with the erstwhile ally are still on. The issue remains a dilemma. Here's more.
It seems that BJP and Shiv Sena have hit a point of no return in Maharashtra. On day one of the special session, newly elected Sena MLAs occupied the seats meant for opposition members in the assembly. The party made it clear that it is no more in talks with BJP about joining the government. Party chief Uddhav Thackeray has written a letter to the Secretary General asking for the post of leader of opposition in the new assembly.
हमारे विधानसभा के जो गठन नेता है एकनाथ जी शिंदे वो शिवसेना पक्ष प्रमुख उद्धव साहब ठाकरे उनसे बात करके वो जो निवडणूक प्रक्रिया है उसके बारे में हमारा निर्णय जो है वो स्पष्ट करेंगे। सुबह 9 बजे तक बाद में शिवसेना और बीजेपी में कुछ चर्चा नहीं हुई है, ऐसी मेरी जानकारी है।
शिवसेना पक्ष प्रमुख जी की जो अपेक्षा है उसे खरा उतरने की कोशिश हम सब लोग मिलकर करेंगे। ये 63 एमएलए जो है एक टीम की तरह इस सदन में काम करेंगे।
BJP is still hopeful. The party hopes there is still some scope to resolve the issue.
Some problems take care of themselves.
मैंडेट के साथ शिवसेना चले और बिना किसी दुराग्रह के या सोच के निश्चित तौर से हम चाहेंगे शिवसेना से बातचीत जारी है। मुझे लगता है कि निश्चित रूप से रास्ता निकलेगा।
BJP is facing number crunch ahead of the crucial floor test on Wednesday to prove its majority. Without Shiv Sena, it is dependent on NCP to survive the test. NCP has assured to back BJP in trust vote, but it has also made it clear that there are no backdoor efforts to partner BJP in the government.
Unless and until certain positive steps are taken by certain sensible people, there will not be stable government, and I don't want the state should go for poll within practically 3 months or 4 months.
On Sunday, Sena chief has served an ultimatum to BJP, saying it will vote against the Fadnavis government if BJP takes NCP's support in trust vote. The ball is now in BJP's court to decide the future course of action. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Joining me for a chat this morning is the assistant editor of the Asian Age, Venkatesh Kesri. Good morning, Venkatesh, and thank you for joining me on the program. I mean, what's happening in Maharashtra? Mixed signals being sent out by all parties. In fact, we saw several leaders of the Shiv Sena earlier yesterday come out and say that, they're going to sit in the opposition. They're not going to support the BJP come what may. But in the evening, you have Uddhav Thackeray coming out and saying, talks are still on with the BJP. We are trying to find some kind of a formula.
I think Shiv Sena is not in a double mind, but giving conflicting signals, and they are not sure whether they want to play the role of opposition or supporting parties, because the Shiv Sena chief Uddhav Thackeray has not been able to assess the mind of the party and the people, those who are supporting him. First, they said that talks are still going on. Mr. Ananta Gite is still a union minister. They have not withdrawn. Secondly, yesterday they sat on the opposition benches. Now they have decided to contest this assembly speaker's election, but at the same time talks are going on. Shiv Sena has not reconciled that it has become a junior partner of the BJP. BJP is not at all worried about the number games. BJP is not even thanking Sharad Pawar's NCP for extending outside support unconditionally. On the other hand, Mr. Pawar has reportedly said yesterday that although they are supporting, but it will be an issue-based support, and they will also play the role of opposition. I think BJP managers are quite sure that they will manage the numbers without, they are not bothered. Because,
because the BJP
because they must be getting support from a quarter of the Shiv Sena, which is keen to join the government, a section of the Congress and NCP also.
Yeah, the BJP seems to be very unworried at the moment. I mean, everyone seems to be extremely cool. They seem to have a game plan and they know exactly what's going to happen as far as the floor test is concerned on Wednesday.
Absolutely right. Because now the big problem before the Shiv Sena is how to keep the party intact. That is perhaps the reason why Mr. Uddhav Thackeray is giving conflicting signals on supporting, not supporting. Number two, Congress has nothing to lose because Congress is anyway pushed to a third position. Even if some of its MLAs resign and contest on the Shiv Sena symbol, the party has nothing to lose. NCP has played its role carefully. And they want to be friendly with the Shiv Sena, BJP, but at the same time, they don't want to lose the opposition space. That is the overall political situation as of now in Maharashtra.
Now, what happens on Wednesday? Say, for instance, NCP decides to abstain from voting, then of course the BJP has the numbers. It can very clearly cross the halfway mark. But if the BJP, if the Shiv Sena and the NCP decide to vote against the BJP, what happens then?
It will not possible for the simple reason the NCP and Shiv Sena, they are had to arrive at a common work on a common strategy because mainly because due to the Shiv Sena is giving conflicting signals. Shiv Sena is in a deep dilemma. Who is its enemy and who is its friend and what should be the strategy. Mr. Uddhav Thackeray, because it all depends, Bombay Municipal Corporation, you see, the Shiv Sena is ruling BMC with the help of the BJP.
Yes.
So now splitting party is different, but running party very difficult.
Yes.
Mr. Thackeray knows it very well. Moreover, senior leaders in the Shiv Sena, they are not playing active role. On the other hand, in the BJP, Arun Jaitley, Rajiv Prasad Rudy and other players, they know how to play their games. So now Shiv Sena is getting, you can see, it's being cornered, pushed to the walls.
All right, the Shiv Sena is being cornered. The BJP has played out a master stroke, is what Venkatesh Kesri is
So
saying.
far,
Thank you so much, Venkatesh Kesri, for joining us on the program this morning and putting things into perspective for us. But do stay with us, of course. We'll come back to you for a short reaction on another subject as well. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Narendra Modi leaves on a landmark three-nation tour today aimed at re-engaging with the Southeast Asian nations. The 9-day tour will be his longest foreign tour as Prime Minister, and it marks an Indian Prime Minister visiting Australia and Fiji after a gap of almost 3 decades. Here's a report.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will embark on a 9-day foreign tour of 3 nations from Tuesday. His tour of Myanmar, Australia and Fiji is expected to inject momentum to his Act East policy.
There are 3 C's, if you would like to know. One is commerce, the other is connectivity, and a third is culture. In addition, he will also focus on issues of a strategic nature.
Modi will attend 2 key summits, the ASEAN-India Summit and the East Asia Summit on 12th and 13th November in Myanmar, and later the G20 Summit in Brisbane.
Focus will be on people-to-people contacts, increasing the civilizational linkages, making sure that there are enough studies which are conducted on the linkages with the ASEAN countries.
We are demanding that there should be a global change in the energy mix. We are seeing a large portion of energy markets which are really dominated by not necessarily by free competition. So there should be more transparency in its operation. And the global energy mix, when it changes, it should also result into bringing more renewables and more clean energy into the field.
The prime focus of the visits will be issues related to economy and employment generation. Modi is also expected to renew the country's commitment to a global response to deal with cross-border tax avoidance and evasion. Akhilesh Suman's report with Bureau Inputs for Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, Venkatesh, coming back to you now on this particular issue, Prime Minister Narendra Modi going on one of his longest tours yet, and this tour has been talked about immensely, especially in the Australian media as well, because an Indian head of state has not really visited Australia over the last 3 decades. What is it that India will like to get from this visit from Prime Minister Narendra Modi?
Frankly speaking, Prime Minister Modi has been working after after the cabinet expansion, he has been maintaining good relations with the neighboring countries. Now he has gone on this tour, and I think he's sure that he will get positive results from this trip.
All right, positive results as far as this particular trip is concerned. And thus far, we've seen India's relations with its neighbors and, foreign policy has been extremely good thus far under this government. And we've been reaching out to everyone to maintain a cordial relationship.
Yes.
So that's what's happened as far as our visits are concerned. All right, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much, Venkatesh Kesri, for joining us on the program and sharing your views on that subject as well. Moving on now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi met his new expanded Council of Ministers yesterday evening and asked them to prep for the winter session of Parliament starting later this month. At the meeting held at the Prime Minister's residence, sources said that Modi asked his team to work in close coordination with each other to ensure that the BJP-led NDA government functions smoothly. 21 new ministers were inducted into the Modi government on Sunday, taking his team from a lean 45 to 66. His cabinet has 4 new members after yesterday's expansion. Moving on now, a roadmap towards privatization of national carrier Air India could be on the anvil, though there is no concrete plan on the move. The government released the new draft civil aviation policy, making radical departures from the past, starting with recommending the listing of state-run Airports Authority of India and chopper firm Pawan Hans on stock exchanges. It further proposes to enhance regional air connectivity, develop 6 major metro airports as international hubs, create more airports through PPP mode, rationalize jet fuel cost, promote air cargo, MRO and helicopter operations, and improve passenger facilitation. The minister said efforts to beef up Air India operations could also include a stake sale as well.
Develop a transparent policy which everybody can understand. When you have something opaque, it lends itself to allegations.
Why should we close our options? Let us have a more conscious decision. When a decision arrives, we arrive at a decision.
Well, that was the aviation minister, of course, talking about the latest policy. We'll slip into a short break now, but still to come on the show, fears of all-out fighting return to East Ukraine as military vehicles move towards Donetsk. That and much more on the other side. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha television. Let's very quickly get you an update as to what's lined up for the day today in our special segment, The Day Ahead. President Pranab Mukherjee will be the chief guest at a function to celebrate National Education Day at the Vigyan Bhavan in Delhi. The day commemorates the birth anniversary of Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, the first education minister of independent India. Vice President Mohammad Hamid Ansari will deliver the Maulana Azad Memorial Lecture on a century of turmoil in Western Asia, some pitfalls of nationalism. On the second day of her visit to the UAE, Foreign Minister Sushma Swaraj will interact with the top leadership and discuss bilateral, regional and other issues of mutual interest. India-UAE bilateral trade amounted to $59 billion in 2013-14. UAE contributes significantly to India's energy security and is the 6th largest supplier of crude oil to India. The special investigation team instituted by the Supreme Court will hear a petition on black money moved by senior advocate Ram Jethmalani. The government had submitted a list of 628 persons in a closed envelope to the Supreme Court. On Sunday, the SIT on black money issued a public notice asking people to furnish precise information about any Indian resident or entity holding illegal or secret assets abroad, assuring that names would be kept confidential. Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister N. Chandrababu Naidu will leave for a 3-day visit to Singapore along with a 12-member delegation today. He will take part as the special guest at the annual South Asian Conference and deliver the keynote address at the meeting. Former Prime Minister of Singapore, Goh Chok Tong, during his visit to Andhra on September 8th, invited Naidu to visit Singapore and said Singapore was interested in investing in Andhra Pradesh to build a better infrastructure. On the second day of the special 3-day Maharashtra Assembly session, Pro Tem Speaker Jeeva Pandu Gavit will administer oath to the remaining members. Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis is to prove his majority on the floor of the House tomorrow. Moving on to some international news now. Militant group Boko Haram is suspected to be behind the suicide bomb attack at a school in northern Nigeria in which 48 students were killed and 79 others wounded. The state governor has shut all public schools around Potiskum where the blast occurred and criticized the government for not doing enough against the Boko Haram group. A suicide bomber dressed as a student is believed to have caused the blast at the government Science Secondary School boys' school. Now, the explosives were detonated during the weekly assembly when an estimated 2,000 students had gathered. Hospital authorities say that 79 victims are being treated and that amputations are likely. In April, the Boko Haram had kidnapped 276 girls from a school in the same region.
The Secretary General strongly condemns the suicide bombing today at the government boarding school in Potiskum. He extends his sincere condolences to the families of the bereaved and to the government and people of Nigeria. The Secretary General is outraged by the frequency and brutality of attacks against educational institutions in the north of the country and reiterates his demand for an immediate cessation to these abominable crimes.
Well, let's take a look now at some other news and updates from around the globe in our segment World Wrap. New columns of tanks, trucks and heavy artillery have rumbled towards the pro-Moscow rebel stronghold of Donetsk as fears grow of a return to all-out fighting in war-torn eastern Ukraine. There have been reports of heavy shelling overnight in the port city of Mariupol. Ukraine's currency also lost nearly 5% of its value on Monday on fears of fighting breaking out openly. After fighting over the summer that killed 4,000 people, a truce has largely held between government forces and separatists in the east, but it appears to be fraying in recent days. Leaders of China and Japan met for formal talks after more than 2 years of severe tension over a territorial dispute. Chinese President Xi Jinping and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe met on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in Beijing. Big power rivalries are over free trade agreements between APEC nations has cast a shadow over the ongoing meet. The Russian Emergencies Ministry has asked residents in parts of Moscow to stay indoors because of an anxious gas that is spreading through the city. The source of the gas is unclear. No accidents have been reported at any of Moscow's chemical factories. Reports said that the gas was hydrogen sulfide, which can be highly toxic and smells like rotten eggs. The gas was also detected in the capital's main shopping areas and around the Parliament building. Families and friends of the 298 victims killed in the downing of Malaysia Airlines flight MH17 paid tribute to their loved ones at a national commemoration ceremony in Amsterdam. More than 1,600 relatives and friends of the crash victims gathered in a conference center in the Dutch capital to attend the ceremony that was organized by the government. Nearly 200 of the plane's 298 victims came from the Netherlands. The plane was allegedly shot down by pro-Russian rebels over Ukraine in July. Well, let's take a look now at the global stock markets. US stocks closed higher on Monday as investors watched corporate results and speculated the economy is strong enough to withstand a global slowdown. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 39.81 points or 0.23% to close the business at 17,630. Standard & Poor's 500 gained 6.34 points or 0.31% to end the day at 2,038. The Nasdaq Composite added 19.08 points or 0.41% to finish at 4,651. Gold prices plunged on Monday by 350 rupees or 0.24% to 25,950 per 10 grams as the dollar's strength dampened demand for the precious metal. Silver fell by 750 or 0.19% to 36,500 per kilogram on poor offtake by industrial units and coin makers. Asian stocks opened high today as the dollar held near a 7-year high versus the yen amid signs of strength in the US economy. Japan's Nikkei is up by 95.77 points or 0.57% to 16,876 at the start of today's trading. Hong Kong's Hang Seng rose 194.46 points or 0.83% to 23,744 at the start of trading. Well, we'll slip into another short break here on the show, but up ahead, all the sports updates. Keep watching Rajya Sabha television. Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha television. Some sports news now. The victorious Indian hockey team returned home from Australia early this morning to a rousing welcome after defeating Australia in the 4-1 Test series. The players were received at the IGI airport by their family, friends, officials and hockey lovers. India pulled off a spectacular 3-1 victory over Australia in their fourth and last test on Saturday at the Perth Hockey Stadium to win the series 3-1. The Indian men's hockey team skipper Sardar Singh had registered yet another milestone when he completed his 200th international cap in the fourth and final test against world champions Australia. Well, let's now bring you up to date with the other news-making sports action from around the world in our latest Sports Beat. Novak Djokovic began his challenge for a hat-trick of ATP World Tour Finals triumphs in London with a 6-1, 6-1 demolition of Croatia's Marin Cilic in 2 sets on Monday. Now, the Serbian world number 1 produced a ruthless display against a ragged US Open champion, opening his Group A account with a 56-minute masterclass. Former Manchester United manager David Moyes has agreed to take over as head coach of Real Sociedad until 30th of June 2016. Moyes replaces Jagoba Arrasate, who was sacked by the San Sebastian-based club on the 2nd of November after a poor start to the season. Moyes replaced the retiring Alex Ferguson at United on a 6-year deal in May last year, but left in April after less than a season. Germany's 23 top soccer players who won the 2014 World Cup in Brazil earlier this year received the country's top award for athletes. President Joachim Gauck, who holds a largely ceremonial role, handed each of the players the silver laurel leaf during a ceremony at his official Berlin residence, Schloss Bellevue Castle. World champion Marc Marquez won the season-ending Valencia Moto Grand Prix to set a new record of 13 victories in a year. The 21-year-old Spaniard led from the 11th lap on his Honda and crossed the line in a time of 46 minutes, 39.627 seconds ahead of Valentino Rossi and Dani Pedrosa of Spain. Italian Rossi continued his strong finish to the season and guaranteed himself second place in the Drivers' Championship. And finally, of course, there's some very special memorabilia up for auction in the UK today. John Lennon's Gresh 6120 guitar is expected to bring in bids of over £1 million. I'm going to leave you with these visuals. Have a nice day.